Hello, Adriana. We are
Hello.
live for our fifth episode on for the accessibility chat. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing today?
I am living my best life. All
Great.
right, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody because I see you doing tech stuff in the background. So I want to welcome everyone to our weekly accessibility chats where the conversations are always raw and real about living with a disability. In this session, we're going to be talking about our healthcare experiences as people with disabilities and sharing some of the best practices for people with disabilities and their parents, allies, guardians, support systems to ensure that people with disabilities have equal access to healthcare and that healthcare is accessible and inclusive as possible for everyone, regardless of ability. So, we want you to feel free to chime in the chat. So, welcome everybody. My name is Mariela Paulino. I am the founder of Project Hearing. I am wearing a black turtleneck sweater because we are in fall weather. So, we are wearing a black turtleneck sweater with a black sweater, tan pants. We are in my office. My office is this white space with lots of natural lights. I've got a bunch of pictures and just like storage stuff in the background, lots of natural light. Very excited to be here today. So, about Project Hearing is an advocacy media company that makes the future inclusive to people with hearing disabilities by hosting trainings and sharing best practices for accessibility and inclusion for people with hearing disabilities and their allies. Very, very excited to be here with y'all. So, Adriana, who are you? And let's go ahead and do your audio description.
Yes. Hi. Welcome, everyone. I'm Adriana Malazzi, founder of Puffin Innovation. I am a white woman with ear length, darkish hair, and some silvers in it. I'm in a power wheelchair. I'm wearing a raspberry colored t shirt um, and with a virtual background. Um, and Puffin Innovations is developing a hands-free device for people with limited mobility in their upper extremities to access all of their consumer electronics, and that is who Puffin is. Uh, Ariella, why don't you start with the ground rules?
Absolutely. So, some of the ground rules that we have here is to remember that the opinions and perspectives expressed during these conversations are just that, our opinions and perspectives in the bubble that we individually live in. These are our opinions and perspectives from our lived realities. We aim to be as unfiltered as possible in this space. We would like for this to be a safe space for you. So we want you to use this space as a space of learning, where you are open to sharing your perspective and asking questions. One of the things that we ask is that if you have a comment or a question that you want to put in the chat, whether you're joining us from Clubhouse, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and you do not want your comment, opinion, thought to be shared with others, make sure that you use the hashtag no screen at the end of your comment if you do not want us to share it publicly. So one of the things that I'm going to go ahead is just go ahead and encourage everyone. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We have had people from as far away as California, Florida. I hope everybody in Florida is doing okay right now. We have had people from overseas, from London. So just go ahead and drop it in the chat where you're joining us from, where you're watching this now or in the future. And if you feel so inclined, let us know, why is this topic interesting to you? Why are you joining us today? So very, very excited to go ahead and get started. So The topic for today is preparing for a doctor's visit as a person with a hearing disability. And I'm going to start by talking about some of the challenges that I have experienced as a person with a hearing disability going to the doctors. And I will start by saying that I actually had one of my most positive experiences ever a few months ago, because the big challenge that I have is that a lot of doctors' offices don't ask for accessibility needs ever. And so I called this office, I scheduled an appointment, and right as we were finishing the appointment, they asked me, do you have any accessibility needs? And that's like Rihanna, let's just explore the language right there. They didn't say, do you have a disability? Do you have any special needs?
Yeah.
They said, do you have any accessibility needs? So that was a really, really unique experience. What about for you, Adriana? Do you have any specific challenges when
Well,
going to a doctor's office?
yeah, I mean, that's phenomenal. That's never been asked at any appointment I've ever been to. So that I would really applaud that doctor's office for actually having that, asking that question. I know many people have with mobility challenges. May have challenges of accessing transportation to and from doctors' offices, and also, the lack of tech. Right, for myself, filling out paper forms, I physically can't fill out a paper form, and so I would need, an assistant to do that for me. And then most doctors' offices for people with mobility challenges, especially wheelchair users, most doctors' offices do not have lifts, and they'll ask that you come with someone, which is absolutely ridiculous. That is not, it's part of the ADA. They need to provide that assistance to get in and out of your chair onto the table. They don't have adjustable tables, height adjustable tables. They don't have wheelchair scales. So most people with disabilities don't get weighed. And I've heard some pretty interesting and crazy stories of creative ways that people get around that challenge. But we'll discuss some of the solutions later on. Um, yeah. So Mariella, what are some of the other challenges that you've experienced going to the doctors?
So one of the things I want us to be aware of, Adriana, before we keep going, is that the StreamYard is not displaying the captions. Do we want to show the Google Meet, which is displaying the captions in the StreamYard?
Um, well, on when they're watching this live on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook, it does do live captioning at the time.
Beautiful.
I didn't want to bombard with double captioning, which is how we did it the last time. And on Clubhouse, there is captioning as well.
Got it. All right, so I'll go ahead and keep going with the conversation. So, one of the big challenges that I've noticed is that for me personally, I feel like technology is still stuck at the end of the 21st century. Okay, like this is like a lot of technology is still stuck in the early 2000s. I'm sorry, in the late. Wait, what is the right language?
So
End of
you
the
in
21st.
the 20th century, in the late 1990s, 1900s, so
Yeah,
1990s,
it's still
yes.
stuck in that time period because a lot of appointments do not have online scheduling, which is so annoying. Like, I still need to call a doctor's office to schedule an appointment, I still need to have a conversation with the phone, over the phone, which is incredibly frustrating. So there is that. And then when you schedule these appointments, you have to really listen on the phone, jot down the information, add it to your calendar. And you would think that at a time when we have online scheduling, that you could just get an email and you click a button and it adds it to your Google Calendar with like the address. Like I actually had an appointment this morning and I ended up going to the wrong office because I mistyped the address. And so it is so frustrating that when we have all of this technology, I still need to call in. I still need to jot down information. I
Mhm.
still need to add this information to my calendar.
Yeah.
In addition to that, one of the things I want to talk about specifically around my hearing disability is that we are still dealing with COVID 19. And with COVID 19, that means people are still wearing masks. So, when people wear a mask, I am not able to read their lips, which make it almost impossible for me as a person with a hearing disability to have 100% effective conversations with people. And so when I wear a mask, it distorts sounds and makes it a little bit harder for me to be able to hear at a doctor's office. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the solutions and workarounds we have in there, but you also talk about some other things, Adriana, relating to privacy. Can you talk with our audience today about what you meant when we had that private conversation?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to actually comment for a second on what you said about scheduling and emailing. And whenever I've been on the phone with someone scheduling an appointment, I'll be like, "Can you email that to me?" And they act like that is the most absurd thing to request. It's
You
like,
know,
oh,
I want to make a pause there because I really feel like there is a reason for that. And it is because of privacy laws that prevent people from just emailing patients. There are all these archaic rules that prevent someone from emailing a patient, which I think is.
well, I mean, just the actual date and the location of the appointment. It's not even any, personal detail. There are secure ways to send emails because doctors do send secure emails. So there are ways of doing that. It's just that it's like this foreign thing to them. They just act like it's just so
The
absurd
most
to even
difficult
request
thing.
it. It's kind of funny, but yeah, the other aspect is privacy, right? As someone with a mobility disability, um, I require someone to be my hands for me, and so I can't physically write or do any of that stuff. So when it comes to forms, when you go to a doctor's office, if it's a new doctor or you haven't been in a while and you have to update your information, I can't do that myself, so I have to tell someone what to write. And sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable. Um, depending, let's say you're going to the gynecologist and you have to fill out all these things about, private, intimate information, your sex life and things like that. And you have to say them out loud to someone that is helping you. And I've had to do that. Um, and so
Can you just like imagine having to do that with like your mom? Like when you go to the gynecologist, and this actually happened to me when I was younger. I had like one of my first gynecologist visits, and my mom ended up having to. No, my mom did not end up having to. My mom requested that she be in the appointment with me, and then the doctor didn't push back. The doctor didn't advocate for my privacy, and so the doctor asked me, "So, because I wanted to go to that appointment because I wanted to get on birth control. And so I told the doctor this. My mom's there. She was just like, she like her eyes wide and like, why are you asking for birth control?
Yeah.
And that is such a valid point that we often don't think about. People with disabilities have a right to privacy, deserve a right to privacy, um, and it's very often overlooked.
Yeah, it definitely is awkward. I'm glad that I didn't have to go to that appointment. I was much older at that point. Um, but I was glad that I didn't have to go with my mother because it would have been really awkward to fill out the form and all the questions. And luckily, I was with one of my PCAs who had at the time been working with me for at least 12 years at that point. So, we are pretty close, and I'm very comfortable with her. But if I didn't have her with me and I, let's say, had to have someone that was covering for her or just started working for me, and I had to share all those personal details about my life, it, I, it would have been awkward. And it's not fair because no one else has to do that, right? No one else goes around with someone else to their doctor's appointments and needing to tell them, divulge all that private information, um, and intimate details about their lives and their bodies, um, and that's not right. So again, another example of how tech has not caught up with, um, you know, these sort of occasions or instances or scenarios, I guess is a better word. Um, yeah,
Absolutely. I want us to keep the conversation going
yeah,
because we have a lot of challenges that we need to go over, but we also have a lot of solutions that we want to share with our audience. One of the things that we've also talked about is that people with disabilities typically tend to be more diligent about advocating for themselves, but that also translates to asking a lot more questions, being a lot more informed on their bodies, on what's going on in their bodies. Adriana, this is a point that you made in one of our private conversations, and I would
yeah,
love for you to talk a little bit more about that with our audience today.
yeah. I think we have learned, right, as people with disabilities, we learn it along the way that we need to be very diligent in asking questions, and we know ourselves better than anyone else. We know how our body works. We have to be so aware of these things. And sometimes, these so-called experts, they're not all knowing. We are well aware of that from all of our lived experience. And so we push back a little bit. I think people who are temporarily able find that a little uh, uncomfortable. That when I go to a doctor's appointment, I will ask a ton of questions. I will make sure and reiterate things to make sure. And when I've been to a doctor's appointment with my partner and at his doctor's appointment, and he'll just sit there and I'll be the one like, okay, you should ask this. How about this? And it seems to me when I've spoken to other people, other family members who are temporarily able, they don't ask these questions. They don't feel they should question the medical professional, right? Especially, and I know Mariella, you might be able to speak to this as well. You are also um, from an immigrant family, and so my family, they're all immigrants, and they have that mentality of, oh, you don't question right? The doctor, they know more than me. You don't question people. They are put on this pedestal, right? These medical professionals. I don't know if that's the same in your culture as well.
It is a bit. But one of the things that I have also grown up with a very outspoken mom who really uh, advocated for me and really
Thing.
strive to make sure that my needs are being met. So I grew up seeing that and having like this fierce lioness, just like making sure
Yeah.
that my medical care
Yeah.
was made a priority.
Oh yeah,
And
that definitely the same for me. It's just that I feel like as I've gotten older, I've become more vocal and
yep,
more. I question more things, and I question.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
I think one of the really interesting things is that in becoming more vocal and asking more questions and really taking ownership of my health, like I have taken doctors off of these pedestal as the all-knowing force of medicine, and I will refer to Dr. Google every once in a while. Even though every once in a while you go on Google, right, and you look up your symptoms and it's like you have 3 months to live, you have cancer and leukemia, like all these horrible things, and it's like, okay, I will refer to Google. I will have that as a background, and I will go to the doctor and I will ask my questions and I will make sure that I have all of the information that I need. I will go through medical studies, read the information, look at my data for my medical studies, and make sure that I have all of the things that I need to be able to effectively advocate for myself. One of the really important things that I've noticed, however, is that the more educated you are as a patient, and the more aware you are of your own accessibility needs and the more vocal you are, you can also be seen as a more problematic patient, which isn't necessarily a good thing. And I say that because very early on in the pandemic, I had to go for an audiologist appointment with my grandmother. And so I go to the audiologist's office, Adriano, and everybody is wearing these masks. Everybody is wearing the mask. So I am putting a mask over my face, and these are the masks that do not show your lips. So we got there. Everybody's wearing masks. I have a hearing disability. I'm having a hard time listening to what the administrative people are saying. Um, I have to schedule follow-up appointments. I have to call in to make those appointments. And I at the end of this whole terrible experience, I say I would like to speak with the office manager. Not in a not in a I want to speak to the manager thing. It was more of a, hey, I'm very concerned about the quality of care that my grandmother is receiving because I have a hearing disability and I'm struggling, and this is an audiologist office. So it's like there's a bit of that disconnect here. And so I had a conversation with the office manager and I used it as an opportunity to educate. And um, and just really bring to light a lot of the challenges that they were having with communication. And mind you, this was the first time anybody had ever brought these issues to the office, and that was really concerning to me because every time I've gone to a doctor's appointment, I will be very transparent and say I go to the NYU Cochlear Implant Center for my audiologist need, and anything that is NYU related, they just have the best quality care. They are just leading the charge for accessibility needs. So to go from that experience at NYU to go to this audiologist appointment with my grandmother was like night and day. And just the fact that I was the very first person that brought these issues to them, these accessibility challenges, was really shocking to me. Like, how are you an audiologist office that still requires people to call in to make an appointment? Like, these are people with hearing disabilities, and you're asking people with hearing disabilities to pick up the phone and call, and you don't even have online scheduling. What is wrong with you people? Um, And so just being able to bring these challenges to people made me feel like I was being like a challenging patient, a challenging like problem stirrer. Uh, but I think at the end of the day, all of this really adds up to one common problem, Adriana, which is that people with disabilities often don't receive the same quality of care as people without disabilities, or people that are, as we call them, temporarily able-bodied. Because, and I'll remind everybody listening today, if we're all lucky to get to old age, if we're all lucky to, live full lives, all of us will at some point in our lives develop some sort of disability. But I would love to hear your closing thoughts on people with disabilities not receiving the same quality of care as people without disabilities. Do you want to touch and close on that point, Adriana?
Oh yes, I have so much to say on this. But I will be somewhat brief, or as brief as I can be. I think COVID really brought that to brought some visibility to that. And what I mean by that is because of the lack of equipment like ventilators and things like that, um, we were seeing stories in the news about uh, selective um, care of certain people, whether it be disability or race, right? And one story I do remember is that someone, I believe he had a spinal cord injury, he contracted COVID near the beginning of COVID. So I think the summer of 2020 it was. And he went to the hospital, and his, I believe, wife or mother, he was married, I don't remember if it was his wife or mother, recorded her conversation with the doctor.
Ay,
And
ay,
basically,
ay.
the
Ooh, this
doctor,
is getting spicy.
it was in the news. It was like there are articles on it. You can look it up. But basically, this doctor said that they were not going to do the treatment that they would have done on anyone else in similar, with similar health challenges as a result of COVID, because how could his quality of life be any better since he has a disability? Basically, is what he said.
Ooh, ooh, oh,
And to
oh.
be that mother, the loved ones, the families hearing and pleading with the doctor to give your loved one the care that they would give, the treatment that they would give any other person there. And that person died as a result of that. Also, in my work many years ago, prior to being an entrepreneur, I had a full-time job at a day hab, and I saw with my own eyes, day in and day out, the treatment of adults with disabilities, the poor quality of healthcare. One example is an individual who had some communication challenges. English was her second language as well. But all of a sudden, they discovered a tumor the size of a football in her abdomen. And obviously, that does not just suddenly appear, right? Like, it doesn't just one day you don't have it, and then suddenly there's a tumor the size of a football. That's not how it works. And she had cancer and passed away shortly after that, as a result of the lack of quality of care that people with disabilities receive, because we are not seen as worthy of receiving said care, right? We are lesser than. I kind of see it as people kind of choosing to make it survival of the fittest, type of thing. And then that's something that I've seen over and over again. And for people who can't communicate for themselves or don't have people to communicate for them, they don't get that quality of care, unfortunately. And it's just sad, and that needs to change. That is something that definitely needs to change. I will stop there on that topic.
All right. So one of the things that I want to go ahead and remind people is if you need closed captioning, we have this live stream happening on YouTube and LinkedIn where you will be able to have access to the caption video. So we encourage you to go ahead and head over to YouTube or LinkedIn if you need access to the captioning. One other thing that we also want to remind everyone is that we have the A11Y conference coming up. And the A11Y conference is a 3-day conference that celebrates the past, present, and future of disability. We're going to explore tools, best practices, and technology that benefits the disability community and their allies. So we want to encourage you to go to a11yconference.com. Go ahead, get your ticket, register, and if you are a person with a disability that wants to be a speaker, that has a story to tell or something that you want to share with the community, we have registration open for speakers up until. We're probably going to be extending the registration for speakers. We have had so many amazing speakers, but just if you're out there, if you're listening to this, if you have something that you want to share with the community, we highly encourage you to submit your talk. Now, we've been talking about challenges as a person with a disability and access to medical care. But one of the things that we want to do now is we want to shift gears and we want to focus on solutions because just talking about the problem is not enough. We want to talk about some of the solutions. And Adriana, you had a really, really great one regarding transportation. So I'd love for you to take the lead and start talking to our audience today about some of your solutions regarding transportation to your doctor's appointments.
Yeah, so um, for most medical offices, and I believe, at least in Massachusetts, all medical appointments, you are supposed to get free, are entitled to free transportation to and from your medical appointment. And so you would either talk to your doctor's office about that and they would schedule it, or ask for the resources. If you receive like PCA services or independent living services, you can also reach out to those agencies and organizations and they can connect you with that service. And again, it's only to and from medical appointments that you would get free transportation, door-to-door transportation. So definitely ask your local organizations for that information. Yes.
One of the things that I also want to encourage medical professionals, we actually received an amazing comment from Carly Johnson in the conversation. And this is such a great topic. And we're going to touch on that in just a little bit. But one of the things that I want to highlight is that medical offices really need to build with universal design in mind. And so I really want to go back with that original point that we started with, was just asking, do you have any accessibility needs? And then having the office be prepared to accommodate people with hearing disabilities. Do you need an interpreter? Do you need ASL? Do you need a lift? What are the accessibility needs that a medical office needs to be equipped for? And if you do not have those accessibility needs, do you have the resources to refer your patients to another healthcare provider where they will be able to get the medical attention that they should have access to so that people with disabilities have equal access. So just starting something as simple as making sure that your doctor's office has a process for at the end of scheduling the appointment, whether it's on the phone or online, asking people what are your accessibility needs. And language is so important. And if you didn't listen to this at the beginning, I'm going to say it again. It's not about asking people, do you have any special needs? Because they're not special. It's not about asking people, do you have a disability? It's none of your business. All you need to ask people is, do you have accessibility needs? What are they? And problem solving and working with the patient. Um, I really want to highlight the importance of going back to Carly's comment.
Yeah, do
Is
you want to read that out loud for people who
you
are
got it. I
on
think it
Clubhouse?
cuts off just a little bit at the end, but I'm
Yeah,
going
I
to
think
read.
the last word is participant, I
All
believe.
right, so
That's
I'll
kind of
go ahead and read it. And the comment reads, I love that Adriana, as an audiologist myself, and with any provider, we are knowledgeable about our area, but you are the best expert on yourself. The best way to get what you need out of the appointment is to advocate for yourself and create that partnership with your provider. You are an active member of your healthcare team, and it's your appointment. As a provider, I appreciate that partnership and value it. It's the best way for me to be able to help my patients when I think she meant to say when they're an active participant. And yes, yes, Carly, I love it, and I cannot stress how important it is for you to be your own best advocate. As a person with a disability, you are your own best advocate. You are the patient. You have a right to access to your health care. It is not your doctor's health, it's your health.
Yeah.
You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to make sure that you are doing the things to ensure your health and your safety. And I'm going to really touch on some of the things that I do as a person with a hearing disability to facilitate my own conversation. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I bring to my appointments.
Can I just quickly say I love the word partnership. And that's what
Yes,
it really should be with any part of your care. It should be a partnership.
it
Yeah.
should be a connection
Yes.
with your doctor. So on that topic, one of the things that I bring to all of my appointments is I bring a clear mask. So I am showing the camera. I have a clear mask. This is from Face View Mask. I bought a whole bunch of these. You can find these on Amazon. And what I do is I will bring one to my appointment because very often this is the very first time that healthcare providers have seen this mask. So I will bring one of these to my appointment. I will give one to my doctor. I will explain that I have a hearing disability. Actually, before I even begin my appointment, I will tell the doctor before we get started. I just want you to know I have a hearing disability. I use a cochlear implant. I'm going to need you to speak a little bit louder. I say that to my nurse. I say that to my doctor. I say that to the receptionist. I communicate. I enter and I say, they know I have a hearing disability because there have been so many times when I was younger that I would go to a doctor's appointment and I did not disclose my hearing disability, and I would be in the waiting room and then they would call out my name and I wouldn't hear, and I would just spend hours just in the waiting room. So being able to disclose your hearing disability from the very beginning is so important. Going back to the math, I will bring one of these babies with me to my appointment. I will bring it in its container and I will give it to the doctor and I will say, hey, do you feel comfortable wearing this so that I can lip read? These masks are getting FDA approval. So I'm very, very excited about that. The next thing that I will bring to my appointment is I carry this little bag with me in my backpack. And what it does is I have, my sunglasses, my glasses, my chargers, my Purell, all my stuff. But the most important thing I have in this little bag is this. I'm pulling out an FM. An FM unit is a microphone that I connect with my hearing equipment. And it is something that my doctor pulls around their neck so that I can hear them better. I will tell my doctor, hey, I have a hearing disability, and I will hand over the FM to them so that I can hear them better when we're communicating. And then the very last thing that I bring to my appointment, if all else fails, I discover this little thing. And so you write on it. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like this thing that you write on it. And if I am just absolutely not able to hear them, they're not willing to wear a mask, I ask them to write. And I will bring these things with me to every single appointment with a healthcare provider to
So
make sure.
to just clarify for people who cannot see, the the device that she was talking about is worn like a pendant around your neck.
Oh,
And then the pad that she uses is one of those like pressure things that when you, as kids, where you write on it and then you peel up that top sheet and it clears it out, type of thing. I don't know what they're actually called, but most kids have played with those. And it's a great thing because you don't need markers, you don't need to wipe it off.
although you can also bring like a dry erase, like little
Right.
board. This is what works for me. I have had to use this just a handful of times, but the main things that work for me as a person with a disability is bringing my FM unit and bringing an extra clear mask that I will give to the doctor to facilitate my communication, or just even bringing a pen and paper. But more than any of these things, the main thing you want to do is before you even step foot into that office, when you're scheduling your appointment, is you want to disclose your disability. You want to make sure that the accessibility needs that you have are going to be met when you're in the office, because one of the worst things that can happen is you go through all the trouble of scheduling the appointment, taking time off, getting to the location, and then you get there and it's like they can't help you. Um, and I'm going to close up unless you have something you want to share,
Well, and
Adriana.
yeah, similarly, if you are a wheelchair user or can't do stairs, again, make sure the doctor's office is accessible. It has an elevator if you need to go to another floor, or wheelchair access into the building in general. So all these questions that you definitely need to ask if you are looking for a new doctor or medical professional, if you have moved. Right, when I came to Massachusetts for college, I had to find new doctors for everything, and that was crazy in itself. And luckily, I had my mom with me, and she did all the heavy lifting for that. I had no clue what I was doing at 18 years old. Uh, but these are things that you really have to think about. Is the office accessible in general if you're a wheelchair user? But we are going to close out our live stream. But for those of you on Clubhouse, if you want to pipe in a second, we're going to close off our live stream and then invite you guys up if you would like.
One of the things that I want to close up before we move on and close the chat, and you want to join us on Clubhouse and come up on the stage, is really the importance of educating. And so my mentality with my healthcare is to use it as an opportunity to educate, not berate someone. Because most of the time, it's just that people just don't know. People don't know how inaccessible something is. They don't know how they are excluding people with disabilities. So, whenever I encounter those situations of inaccessible spaces in healthcare, I use it as an opportunity to educate, to reach out, to create that partnership with healthcare providers to make sure that the next time that they have a patient with a disability, they're a little bit more informed, and so that person has a better experience than I did. So educate, don't be brave. You always will bring in more bees with honey than with vinegar. So that is my very last thought on that. And with that said, we want to close out and just remind all of you that we have some upcoming events. So Adriana, you want to tell people about our next episode?
Yes. So next week you can join us for episode 6. I can't believe this is going to be our 6th one already. And it is going to be speak out and fear, or speaking out and fear. And we're going to be talking about fears and disclosing and or accepting our disabilities. So that is going to be what we will be talking about next week. We will determine the time. We will be scheduling these at a new time, and we will let you know once we figure that out. So please tune in next week for that discussion, Mariella.
Yes. And the reason for that, and I'm just going to share it with our audience today, is I am starting a new position on Monday.
Woo-hoo!
Very, very excited about that. Wow. So that means that my schedule is not going to be as flexible moving forward. Jana and I need to set up some time. We're going to be meeting up in person on Sunday. So we're going to be coming up with a new time for these conversations. So TBD on the time for these future conversations. I want to use this as an opportunity to plug in once more the A11Y conference. The A11Y conference is going to be a 3-day conference that is going to celebrate the past, present, and future of disability. So a reminder for all of you listening in, tuning in, if you are an ally, if you are a person with a disability, if you are just someone that wants to be more educated on accessibility, on disability, and inclusion, this is going to be the conference for you. We are going to have an amazing, we have an incredible lineup of speakers that we need to share with the community. So we're going to be doing a lot of that in October. Very, very excited about that. Adriana, I don't know if you want to run the little thing at the bottom with the information. We want to let you all know that we have a survey. So if you enjoy these conversations, make sure that you go to bit.ly /A11Y chat survey. To let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of. And Adriana, you want to explain what is happening with that little line that's going across the bottom?
So also, we want you to follow all of us on social media. And we have a ticker on the bottom for those on Clubhouse and for those who are not able to see our video feed. So follow us on socials. Mariella, which her handle is at Project Hearing on all socials. Myself on all socials is my full name, Adriana Malazi. That's 1 N, 2 L's, and 2 Z's. And then everything A11Y related, follow on all social platforms at A11Y Conference. So, be sure to follow us. And that way you can be up to date with future chats, our conference, etc. I think I covered it all. Hope to see you all next week, or to be determined, actually, of when we will actually see you. But it will be within a week or so. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Until next time. Let's close up. And